What rich people do with their money would probably disappoint you because it's not flashy, it's not exciting, and it definitely won't look good on social media, but it works. While most people are busy trying to optimize every dollar they earn, chasing stocks, crypto, side hustles, and shortcuts. Wealthy people are doing something far simpler in the background. They stop thinking about money every single time they spend it. And that's the part almost nobody understands at first, because the real difference isn't how much they make. It's how their money behaves the moment it comes in. Most people assume wealth is built in big moments. A lucky investment, a business win, a perfect timing decision. But if you actually look at how wealthy people operate, you'll notice something very different. They don't rely on decisions, they rely on structure, because decisions change every day, but structure stays the same. And once you see that pattern, it becomes hard to ignore. Money for most people arrives and immediately enters chaos. Bills pull it one direction. Impulse spending pulls it another. Life just kind of absorbs the rest. There's no system, no separation, no boundaries. It's just income to survival to repeat. And that's why even higher income doesn't always feel like progress, because nothing is directing the flow. Wealthy people solve this in a very unglamorous way. They don't try to control every decision. They pre-decide where everything goes. And this is where things start to make sense. Because if you look closely at how they structure things, there's a quiet pattern underneath it all. Every dollar gets assigned a role the moment it arrives. Not emotionally, not randomly, systematically. And that system usually splits into three directions. Not as a theory, as a habit. The first direction is the one most people keep postponing. Not because they don't understand it, but because it doesn't feel urgent. It's the portion of money that never gets absorbed by today's life. No bills, no lifestyle upgrades, no just this once spending. It's set aside to build something that only future you benefits from. For most people who adopt this mindset, it ends up being around 15%. And at first, it doesn't feel like much. It feels like something you could easily skip, but that's exactly why it matters. Because this part of your income quietly changes your relationship with time. Instead of money only solving today's problems, it starts building tomorrow's options. And that shift is subtle, but powerful. Because once that 15% is consistently removed from your day-to-day thinking, something interesting happens. You stop feeling like every financial decision is urgent. You stop reacting emotionally to small expenses. You start noticing that not everything needs immediate attention. And over time, that creates a strange kind of stability. Not because your life got simpler, but because your money stopped being chaotic. And here's where the second part comes in. Because even if that future-focused piece is handled, you still have something much bigger happening in the background. Life itself, housing, food, transport, bills, everything required to function. This is where most people slowly lose control without realizing it. Not through one bad decision, but through small upgrades that feel completely normal in the moment. A slightly nicer apartment, a slightly better car, a slightly more expensive lifestyle baseline. Nothing dramatic, just constant adjustment upward. And before long, your income grows. But your breathing room doesn't. That's not because you're irresponsible. It's because nothing is capping the expansion. Wealthy people approach this differently. They define a limit for what life is allowed to consume. Roughly 65%, not as punishment, as protection. Because without a boundary, lifestyle naturally expands to fill everything available. And once it does, financial progress quietly disappears, even when income increases. But here's the important part most people miss. This isn't about living poorly, it's about living intentionally. Because once there's a defined structure for essentials, decisions become simpler. You stop upgrading things just because you can. You start asking a different question. Does this actually improve my life or just increase my expenses? And that question alone changes behavior more than motivation ever could. Now here's where the system becomes sustainable. Because if money was only about restriction and control, no one would stick with it. Eventually people break. They overspend. They reset. They start over. And the cycle continues. Wealthy people avoid that entirely by doing something most systems ignore. They allow space for enjoyment on purpose. That's where the remaining portion comes in, roughly 20%. And this is not extra money. It's structured freedom, money that exists specifically for living, for experiences, for enjoyment, for things that make life feel like more than just maintenance mode. And the key detail here, it's not accidental spending, it's intentional spending, which completely changes how it feels. because now when you spend it, you're not breaking the system, you're operating inside it. And this is where most people misunderstand the entire idea of budgeting. They think structure removes freedom, but in reality, structure creates it. Because without structure, every purchase carries guilt, doubt, or second guessing. But with structure, decisions become clean. You already know what's allocated. You already know what's allowed. You already know what's off limits. No emotional negotiation required. And over time, something interesting happens. You stop thinking about money constantly. Not because you have more of it, but because it's organized. An organization reduces mental load more than income ever does. Now, there's one more subtle piece that ties everything together. This system doesn't rely on perfect discipline. It relies on repetition, because when you repeat the same structure every time money comes in, you don't need to decide anymore. You just follow the pattern, and that removes the biggest source of financial inconsistency, human emotion. And if your situation doesn't look perfect right now, that's normal. Most people don't start at clean percentages. Some start messy. Some start overwhelmed. Some feel like there's nothing left to structure. But the goal isn't to jump into perfection. It's to introduce direction. Even imperfect structure beats no structure, because once you start organizing money consistently, your relationship with it begins to change. Slowly, but noticeably. And as income grows over time, this system doesn't break. It scales. Because instead of lifestyle consuming every increase, the structure distributes it. Future you benefits automatically. Present you stays stable. And life still has room to be enjoyed. No extremes, no resets, no chaos cycles. Just continuity. So when you strip away all the noise, this is what wealthy people are actually doing with their money. Not chasing complexity. Not reacting emotionally. Not constantly starting over. Just building a structure that runs quietly in the background. Simple enough to ignore, but powerful enough to change everything if you don't. And the real question isn't whether this works. It's whether your money currently has a structure or just habits pretending to be one. Because the difference between those two things, that's where wealth actually begins. And if this made you think differently about your own system, then you're already ahead of where you were before watching this. Stick around. There's a lot more to unpack.